All right, welcome everybody. I have to apologize. These slides were made for PC, and I'm on an Apple, so it's a little bit off in a few places, but the data is the same. I just mentioned this before hitting the record button, and I want to make sure everybody hears this. I want to keep this as short as possible as I cover Unifii, the financial resource products, how Unifii helps you build wealth. But I mentioned, and I often put the two words together, we're talking about a conservative approach to accelerated wealth building. And the words conservative and the word accelerated in terms of wealth building, do not typically go together. By the time we get through this, I think you're going to see why I underscore that those two worlds come together here. We have an accelerated strategy for generating wealth by tapping into a new rising asset class, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but in a way that is very different. And so for those of you who've been trading or hearing about people trading or buying and holding Bitcoin and crypto, it's very different what we're talking about than what I have seen anyone else doing before. We're not just talking about trading on signals. We're not just talking to people who are experts in trading. We're not just talking to beginners. We're talking to everybody being able to tap into a conservative and accelerated wealth building strategy. Sit tight as I go through this, and you're going to understand why I frame it that way. Before we begin, I do want to read this disclaimer. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Basically, the important part is that Unifii Corporation is not registered as an advisor. They're not here to give you individual advice. It's up to you to what in terms of what to do. Later, we're going to talk about how that's such a big advantage for you and how that's the value that's here, part of it. That trading is inherently risky and not all trades will be successful. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how you can still be extraordinarily successful even if not all of them are. And you will experience losing trades if you trade. And the crux of it is, do not invest more than you're willing to lose. But I'm going to show you how you can be very conservative as a starting point. And with this conservative, accelerated wealth building strategy, do extraordinarily well by tapping into the power of compounding and being involved with a rising asset class. One thing we just gave a disclaimer for trading. By the way, those of you who are brand new to trading, this is so easy. Unifii has made it so simple. And those of you who've been messing around with other cryptocurrency Bitcoin opportunities that take your Bitcoin and then they promise to give you high returns, that is not what's happening here. And that's very important because that's illegal. And that's something that's a precedent that was set at maybe the beginning of this year. It was fuzzy or cloudy in a lot of lawyers' minds, but that is now determined by the SEC to not be allowed. So Unifii does not take or hold your Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. It is in your control. And again, that's part of, but not the whole story behind why I call this a conservative strategy that compares to nothing else, but still accelerated in wealth building. I just talked about a disclaimer and the risk of trading, which is important to acknowledge. Again, we're talking about doing in a conservative approach here, so the risk should not be high. You should not be risking a large amount of capital here. You don't need to. I'll show you the numbers are astronomical, even if you are starting very conservative. But we do need to address that risk, but we should also address the risk of the status quo. I mean, in today's world, far too many people are struggling financially. You know it. I know it. We see it all around us. And again, I apologize. The slides will be a little bit off because this is designed for a PC and I'm on an Apple right now, but it still worked just fine. We see that massive debt is like a common thing. Really good people with good intentions, just living their lives, mom and dad both working. We see this everywhere. And yet even in those cases, a lot of times the kids having to get a mass amount of debt to go to school, like they start out right out of the nest in debt now. It's absolutely incredible. Many are a few missed paychecks away from serious trouble. Now, many are living on credit. We start them right out of the gate if we send them to college, which we tell all the kids it's what you have to do. No matter what I tell my kids, they're going to college for the social reasons, the social peer pressure. Like it feels weird not to go, especially here in Portland, Oregon, man. You're a real odd duck if you don't go to college. And, after the kids get to a certain age, they're influenced more by their peers than they are their parents in many ways. for me to try to convince my kids not to go to college, it's an awkward thing to even attempt to do. They want to go to college because that's the social acceptable thing to do for a successful person. And yet we're kicking them right out the door, setting them up. Setting them up for huge debt. Many are living on credit, paying today's bills with tomorrow's wages. Wages are falling behind. Housing prices increasing. I mean, you try to get a house here in Portland, Oregon. You know, you see all these people in these fancy houses. You see them on YouTube and you see them on Facebook showing off. My houses look pretty modest in comparison, because here in Portland, Oregon, $1 million house is modest. A $700,000 house is middle class, maybe upper middle class. There's nothing glitzy about the houses around here, but they cost a fortune. And I'm sure that that's in many places throughout the country. Portland's, one of the more spendy places, but housing prices are increasing everywhere 2 to 3 times faster than salaries. We all feel that. We all see that. So that's the problem. And when we talk about risk, and when you think about risk, we got to be careful how we're so indoctrinated. We're so brainwashed really into thinking a certain way. And we need to be careful with that. I gave the example, at least be mindful of it, right? Just be mindful of it. When I talked about the example of my kids getting ready to go to college, I mean, there's really nothing I could do to convince them not to go to college. I'd like them to go into business, but socially, it's not acceptable around here. And so it's just not, they're going to go to college, and that's fine. They'll have that social experience. It'll be an expensive one, but nonetheless, that's the indoctrinated thing to do. But you got to be mindful and careful about yourself, especially if you're an adult and you've kind of seen how the world works. You saw the 2008 financial collapse. Many of you learned for the first time after that the Federal Reserve isn't even federal, it's private. You need to pull the curtains back if they haven't been pulled back already. And you need to realize that the way we have been trained to assess things isn't always in our best interest. The way we've been trained to look at things, to look at risk assessment is not in our best interest. So you got to take responsibility. And what really Unifii is all about is solving this problem by first helping people take control, be empowered to take control of their own money, to be able to grow and protect their own money, to empower them with the tools, the knowledge to do that. So that's at the crux of it. 1 second here, guys. My phone's ringing on me. So who is Unifii? Unifii is a team of specialists in the financial publishing field. So they're publishing information to empower us to break out of that mold, out of that trap that a lot of people found themselves into. Our purpose, to share the best wealth building strategies, tools, and financial principles that protect, grow, and accelerate wealth, regardless of your available starting capital. Remember when I said you can start with a very conservative amount? Absolutely the case. I'm going to show you the numbers in a little bit. Here's something that's hard to read because I have these slides built for the PC and I'm on an Apple right now. But it says, to build wealth, you must be able to make money while you sleep. And a lot of us have heard that, and some people scoff at it like it's an impossibility, but that's ridiculous. Again, the indoctrinated brainwashing thing. Warren Buffett said that. Warren Buffett said, to build wealth, you must be able to make money while you sleep. This isn't a pie in the sky thing unless you think like the middle class. And if that's where you've been born, like myself, into, then you've got to, on your own, you have to make a decision to break out of that and to start asking. Even if you don't want to become like a multimillionaire, you have to tap into the same principles, or you're literally going to be on the bad end of the stick, the short end of the stick forever. And not only will you not be well off, you're going to be in debt, or you're going to be struggling, or your quality of life is going to get diminished as you get older. It's not a pretty picture. We need to start listening to what the elite are doing, the financial elite, and at least tap into it a little bit. Wealth building strategies is number one at Unifii. In an emerging asset class, you could do extraordinarily well. We're going to talk about that today. I want you to know cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, isn't where it ends with Unifii. It's just such an exciting time of opportunity. That's where the focus is right now. But they are coming out with other products, for example, to help people protect themselves from the crash that is definitely coming on the stock market, similar to what we saw in 2008. The catalyst may be a little bit different, but nonetheless, all the cards are stacked for that to happen. Everybody knows it that's paying attention. Robert Kiyosaki's been teaching it for years. Tony Robbins even talks about it. It's a cyclical, inevitable thing. So there's more than just education and tools to take advantage of the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin market. That's a rising asset class. So that's number one right now, but there is much more to protect and grow your money. that Unifii helps you with. Number 2, wealth building tools. I'll talk about these today. There's the universal signal. I'll talk about what that is. There's the advanced signal. I'll talk about what that is. There's Prosperity U, which is built around informing and educating you, but in a very fast, succinct, simple way. I've never seen anything so succinct to plug you in and move you forward if you're starting from ground zero with all of this. And then there's the altcoin reports, which I'll talk about today. Now, number 3, financial principles, teaching simple principles like compounding, which I'll start to cover with you today. They're simple, and yet people have been missing the boat on it, like myself included. I've made 7 figures, had a couple 8-figure years, but I didn't understand. I understood compounding in business. I understood how that worked if I applied my effort towards a vision and I worked at it and I got those rewards. But I didn't understand how to put my money to work for me. And oh man, if I had been introduced to Unifii, and even if I didn't tap into number 1 and number 2, even if I didn't tap into their tools, I didn't tap into Bitcoin and crypto, the signals, just the simple thing I'm going to share with you today would have changed my financial life massively, massively. It can't be understated. Just because it's simple, it cannot be understated. And so many people are not getting it. And I'm going to show you something today that hopefully will change the course of your life forever in how you think about what compounding is and how little money you can start with and you can accelerate it. I mean, a lot of us know about compounding over 40 years, and you can get wealthy over 40 years, but that's not very exciting, is it? I'm going to show you an accelerated but still conservative strategy to tap into compounding because of the rising asset class with Bitcoin. Wealth building strategies, number 1. I just saw my camera went off, so hopefully I'm still here. It looks like I am. We're going to talk about emerging asset classes. Bitcoin's global acceptance is just beginning. I want you to understand you have not missed the boat. Global financial centers are heavily invested, but they're just setting things up now to come in. Billions being invested in blockchain internationally. A lot of other countries, a lot more advanced than we are. If you go into your average convenience store in Asia or a lot of developing countries where banking is not so accessible, where there are billions of people, you see a thriving Bitcoin market, nothing like you see in the United States or the UK, a lot of parts of the UK. Now, we have ATMs, Bitcoin ATMs throughout the city here, throughout different cities, but it is prevalent and part of their everyday life for developing countries and even like Southeast Asia, Seoul, Korea, for example. It is happening. Microsoft accepts it. MasterCard's integrating it. Amazon's moving towards it. CNBC had said in one of their recent episodes, Bitcoin has the best chance of dethroning gold as the globe's ultimate store of value. Man, guys, the writing's on the wall. The signs are everywhere. We're getting a huge warning, or at least the signals everywhere. It's so obvious if you're paying attention. And if you saw the .com move, we'll talk about that in a minute. If you saw the .com evolution, you should be seeing a lot of parallels, even though this is even bigger. I'll come back around to that. What one Bitcoin could have historically bought you in 2011, one Bitcoin would have got you a pack of gum. That's it. In 2013, it would have got you a bag of groceries. In 2015, you could have bought an iPad with a Bitcoin. In 2018, now you can buy a nice motorbike. In 2025, who knows what you can buy with one Bitcoin, but they're in limited supply. We're seeing a thriving, growing, booming economy around it in developing countries and even many developed countries outside the U.S. and Europe, like in Asia. We're seeing, I ran through these things. We're seeing an entire infrastructure be built for the investment financial markets that haven't come in yet, but everything's being built for it to happen. The writing is on the wall. So worrying that you missed the Bitcoin boom, you absolutely haven't. If we look at the .com, evolution, you go back to like the early 90s, we're basically there. Some say even the late 80s. This is so much bigger. This is so much more massive in terms of its impact because we're talking about the way people use money. And we're talking about replacing the way people, or the money that people use. It's going to be digital, and it's going to be these decentralized assets. Some people argue, well, it's not completely decentralized because people are still involved, but nothing like we use today. Like that's where it's going. And we're seeing all kinds of systems and structures being set up to be able to facilitate that. Starbucks is involved. Microsoft is involved. It's just obvious how massive it's going to be in terms of impacting our lives. And whenever you have a shift from something that massive, they call it a disruptive technology because it disrupts everything else. It creates new industries. We saw that with the .com. You have a huge opportunity to get huge returns if you're investing in it, even with a small amount. And by the way, oh man, if I could just explain this concept, those of you who've invested a lot in stocks will understand this. Typically, historically, the average person could not throw $500 into a rising asset class or a disruptive technology. Typically, the average person didn't have access to opportunities like this. But because it's so massive and because it was born outside the system, it's available to all of us to put in a little conservatively and still get the massive returns. And you have not missed it. It is very, very early. Look at all these companies that came after the .com era. So after the big .com boom, Apple came after it. Google came after it. Facebook came after it. Amazon came after it. Netflix came after it. So the point here is a lot of the big opportunities are still yet to come. Bitcoin experts agree this is only the beginning of blockchain opportunities. You have certainly not missed it. It is just the beginning. Wealth building tools. We've got the universal signal, the advanced signal I'm going to talk about, some real numbers, exciting numbers, life-changing numbers. We've got Prosperity U, which teaches you how to do this. If you're starting from ground zero, no problem. We've got the altcoin reports. For those of you who don't know what altcoins are, I'll talk about in a little bit. It's different assets within the cryptocurrency market that have huge potential for returns. All of this in Prosperity U is about, or really with Unifii and Prosperity U, is about increasing your financial IQ and increasing your financial intelligence. So you get all of this in one package. So let's talk about Prosperity U specifically. Your initial enrollment into Unifii includes access to Prosperity U. You get Cryptocurrency 101, easily learn how to buy and sell BTC, wealth building strategies and tools, using the financial secrets of the wealthy elite. Obviously can access it from any kind of device at any time, and much more content from a growing video library. And I got to say, I have studied a lot of content. My cryptocurrency journey, Bitcoin journey really began in 2017, and I was on a Speedo course, and I've studied all kinds of different things. I've bought a lot of courses. Nothing has been as simple and as fast in terms of getting started as this. It's not highly technical. That's the point. It's to get you up and running and using the simple tools and just getting results. That's really all that matters. Number two, the universal signal. Now we're going to talk numbers. It's a process simple enough for anyone to use. It can be compared to online banking, and I would say even easier than online banking. In other words, if you have a bank account and you do online banking at all, you go online and you look at your balance, you can do the universal signal and tap into this. No experience required with trading to succeed. Protect and grow your money regardless of Bitcoin's price movement. So you can, it doesn't matter if it's going up or if it's going down. You're capitalizing on it. You're making money in Bitcoin. Because if you get a signal, which is basically just buzzing you, well, actually, with the universal signal, they don't come very often. 7 times over the last year. Very infrequent. And actually with the universal signal, I misspoke, with the universal signal, you don't even get buzzed on your phone. You just log in occasionally and see if it's changed because it's so infrequent. And then you just do a trade. It takes less than like a minute to do one. And like I say, 7 times it triggered in the last year or so. It's like under 10 minutes in a year. And we're going to look at the numbers. It's quite remarkable because you're leveraging a rising asset class, something your average person couldn't do in previous disruptive technologies like they can here so early because it's so massive and because it was created from outside the system. Anyone can participate regardless of schedule. Really, really simple. So here's some numbers. This is really powerful. Over here, by the way, on the left, you get an idea of how it works. You see this green fuzzy button or image in the background. It actually says entry, and the red one says exit. When you log into Unifii, you can just check once a day, take you a second, and it's almost never going to change. If it says enter, if it says entry, green, you should be in. If it ever turns red, you should get out. It means you should turn your Bitcoin back into cash, either cash or USDT, which is like a digital currency that stays consistent with the dollar. If you're using Coinbase or something like that, you just get out of Bitcoin if it says red. Very, very simple, guys. It only takes you a moment to do that. And again, it only triggered 7 times in the last year or so. So we're not talking very often that you have to worry about this. But still, you're in control. That's the important part. So results between July 24th, 2017 and September 9th, 2018, 7 total trades. That's 85.7% of them were winning trades. If you had started with 5,000 in BTC, $5,000 worth. By the way, you didn't have to. You could have started with 200, 500, and the percentage gain would have been the same that I'm about to show you. But let's just say, for example purposes, you started with 5,000 in Bitcoin. You started on July 24, 2017. Your ending BTC value would be over $34,000. That's quite a gain. Now, total fees, because there are some fees, I believe these are going off of Binance, would be $228. We just want to be transparent about that. Total gain would be 595%. That's an average monthly gain of 15.45%. Now, your average person doesn't know how massive that is. They go, oh, that's great, but they don't understand how that can turn $500 into millions. We're going to show you that a little bit. Compared to Bitcoin buy and hold, let's compare, because you might say, well, yeah, but last year was a great year for Bitcoin. So how does following the signals compare to just buying Bitcoin and holding it and not trading it? If you had the same starting balance example of $5,000, you would have ended up with $11,000. You would have done a little bit better than doubling it. Not bad. There wouldn't have been much fees because you would have only done one transaction buying the Bitcoin. Your total gain would be 128%. We're talking 595% compared to 128%. And I also want to make the point that if you had bought Bitcoin in July or February, you would have actually lost money. But with the signals, you can actually still be making money because the signal tells you to sell, and then it goes down, and then when you buy back in and it goes up, you just made a huge amount, and you got free Bitcoin, because when you sell at a higher price and it goes down because you get this red signal, so you sell, and then you buy at a lower price, you just got more Bitcoin because you sold out. And then when it says green and you buy back in, which might be months later at a lower price, you now have more Bitcoin. And then when it goes up, you have more Bitcoin going up. So when it goes up to the same price it was before, you've got a lot more money. So working with signals rather than buy and hold, as we can see, is dramatically better, and that's why. And even in a bear market, that would be the case. Now let's look at the advanced signal. This is for people who want to be more active traders. Maximize your trading results for more experienced traders. One signal every 1 to 2 days on average. So you're trading a lot more. Now this one you are getting buzzed on your phone or your computer. It lets you know when the signal changes. This one you need to pay more attention, because if it comes in, you're going to want to trade it within a few minutes. Learn with other advanced signal users globally. And again, this is optional. I think the universal signals part, it's not as exciting because you just put it in there and you don't do much. You just let it work for you. But the universal signal is probably smarter for most people who don't want to be paying attention every day and trading every day. Even though this is only 1 to 2 times a day, it's every day. But some people like to be more active. You get to learn with others. You get to learn about stop loss. You get to learn about taking profits along the way. I'll talk about that in a minute. You have a members Telegram support group. We show you how to get in that group and be amongst others, ask questions. You're learning how to trade. It's not complicated. It's simple. It's still kept extraordinarily simple for somebody who even doesn't have experience in the past. You can come in and do this, or start at the universal signals and graduate into this if you wanted to. I want you to know it's not like extremely complex in comparison to what you might be seeing on YouTube videos, but nonetheless, it is more involved. The signal prompts you on your smartphone. You can, as this is saying, transition from universal to advanced if inclined at any time. The advanced signal results from July 24, 2017 to September 9th, the same period to give a comparison. That was 228 total trades instead of just 7. 54% of them were winning. So on the advanced, there's going to be a lot more losses because it's going to do a lot more protecting, like micro. The universal signal is writing long-term trends, meaning long periods of time. So a signal might say, enter and get Bitcoin, and you come in and get Bitcoin. With the universal, the one we were just talking about, and then a month can go by or months can go by before you get another signal. And during that time, it might be going up and down. You don't pay attention. You don't care. You're looking at the long-term trend. That signal, computers are using AI and all kinds of computerization to do technical analysis for us, to read charts and volume and anticipate what's going to happen. And with the universal, it's anticipating long-term trends. With the advanced signal, it's short-term. And so it's going to be asking you to buy and sell a lot more often, and you're not going to have as many winning trades because it's going to be protecting your money, causing you to sell, maybe take a small loss in order to keep you from taking a larger loss, like little micro movements. But even though almost half were losses, let's look at the numbers, because it's allowing you to protect your money and maybe take a little loss on a trade in order to gain a bigger win, so that the ultimate win is large. So with the same example, starting BTC value 5,000, again, you could start with much less and still get the same percentage gain. And I'll show you some examples with smaller amounts later. But let's say you started with 5,000, your ending BTC value, if you followed the advanced signals from July 24th to September 9th, would have been nearly $40,000. Fees would be a lot higher because you've got 228 trades. And every time you do a trade, you have to pay a fee. Your total gain would be 684%. That's an average monthly gain of 16.48%. Compared to the buy and hold strategy we covered before, 684% compared to 128%. So the advanced signal is a little bit more involved, but I want to mention it's actually even better than this from what we're seeing so far when you apply what they teach, which is using the signals with stop loss. And if you don't know what stop loss is, we teach you that. And again, you don't have to do advanced signals. You could just plug into the universal signal and not have to learn any of this stuff. But for those of you that are a little bit more advanced, if you do what they're teaching and you apply stop loss, which is quite simple to learn in there, and they're really good at teaching it, and you take profit, they teach you how to take profit along the way. Following the strategy they're teaching with the advanced signal, in the last 4 weeks, the gain was over 28% in 1 month. 28%, applying all those strategies. Quite incredible. So that's the signals. For those that have never traded before, all I can say is it's extremely simple. And as you'll see at the end of this, the cost of getting involved and getting access to all this is extremely low. And I'm going to go over some more numbers to show you the power of compounding, how much you can end up with after a few years of being able to tap into this rising asset class, with research tools, with information like these signals. It's just information. You're doing the trading, but with access to something like this, how much you can have at the end of like a 5 or 6 year period with even a much lower monthly return than what we're seeing here. So sit tight for that. It's life-changing. But I also want you to know that you also get the altcoin reports, which really simplify understanding the altcoins. The altcoins are other cryptocurrency assets. They're not Bitcoin, but they're other cryptocurrencies. And they have the potential, just like we saw in the internet boom, like Netflix or Amazon, to do exceptionally well over time. Obviously, they're considered risky, but you got to realize that thousands of them are just BS. What Unifii has done is they've sifted through and spent, done, countless hours of research and picked their favorite ones and broke them down, explained how their business models work, and explained it in a way that we can understand it. Because when you read the white paper, which is what the cryptocurrency organizations put out there, it's very technical, often like ridiculously overcomplicated, more than it needs to be. It's really difficult to get through all the white papers and just navigate and decipher what's going on. These altcoin reports have helped confirm for me which ones I wanted to get into, that I was looking into, and it just brings like peace of mind because I read these little reports and understand, because they're so much more condensed and easier to follow than the white papers, and it helps confirm the decisions that I want to make. So for those of you who want to get a little bit of real estate, so to speak, in the cryptocurrency assets called altcoins, these altcoin reports will help you. And if you're brand new to all this, they'll be very, very helpful to understand what they even are. So where are the most promising altcoins on their roadmap? They're using high-value metrics to identify undervalued coins on the verge of explosive growth. Analytical professionals evaluate and rate strong undervalued altcoins with the best chances of rewarding you. And they give you like a rating. It's really, really helpful. So you have access to that as well. Again, you are always in control of your assets. You're always in control of your money in Bitcoin. You never give it to Unifii to invest for you and then promising returns. It's really important to understand that. And that's part of why I say this is conservative in comparison to any other opportunities I've seen out there that promise these high returns. You're in control. You're the investor. And they're helping you know how to become independent in that area and strong and competent in that area without it being highly technical, making it super simple with protect first, grow second as the goal, which is very unusual in the crypto space as well, and very important because you want to keep what you've gained. A lot of people made a lot of gains last year and then they lost it all at the beginning of the year. That wouldn't happen if you were following Unifii, because their emphasis is on protecting the money that you're making along the way. You maintain full control of the money at all times. Your money is always kept in your own secured account. Unifii does not make money from your trading activities. Now let's talk about the third element to how Unifii is helping people. And this one is uber simple, but extraordinarily powerful, and aren't the most rewarding, powerful things in life. They usually end up being simple. But if you don't know how to tap into them, then you can't benefit from them. This is life-changing right here from a financial perspective, which really impacts all areas of our life, right? I'm just going to take a sip of coffee here from my Alice in Wonderland giant cup here. Robin always brings me this cup. It's as big as my face. Financial principles, accelerating your success. You see Einstein behind me. That's not by mistake. I really like what he represents and what he's done with his, what he did with his career, and the way he kind of projected his ideas. He made this quote: "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world." He was literally talking about compound interest. And this is really interesting. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So your house mortgage, or if you're paying rent, you're even getting shorter end of the stick paying compound, because the person you're paying your rent to is paying compound interest most likely, and you're paying the rent to cover that plus a profit for them in most cases. Mortgage, you're paying compound interest. Credit cards, you're paying compound interest. Most people are on the short end of the stick of it. You've got to get on the other side of it. And that's what Unifii is helping you do, to understand it so you're benefiting from compounding. So you're getting more growth out of compounding principle than you are losing money on compounding principle. A lot of people end up at the end of their life, towards the end of their life, saying, man, I don't have enough money to maintain my lifestyle. Or younger people these days are getting the debt with college, coming out of college. A lot of them are now out of college working behind Starbucks, the counter, serving me at the restaurants with really no prospects or plan. Many of them. They have a college education and a huge debt. That's where compounding interest is working against you. Very hard to get ahead because they're working against compounding interest. Whether you're young or older, looking at retirement or looking how you can get ahead of that and have compounding work for you, this is powerful, guys. This is powerful. So we talked about the universal signal, which is the easy signal, the one where you don't have to have experience, you don't have to learn about stop loss, you don't have to learn about profit taking. You let it ride the long-term trends, and you just check it from time to time. It says it's green, you should own your Bitcoin. You can start with $500 of Bitcoin, whatever. It turns red, you sell it, and it only triggered 7 times the last year. So we're talking really simple. So let's refer to that. So check this out. Remember that the average monthly return with the universal signal over that January to September period, that a little bit over a year, was 15.45%. We're going to use this calculator, basically almost cutting that in half, going off of 8.5% for example purposes, just to be more conservative. Again, we're in a rising asset class. So yes, while it's risky to be involved with anything that offers high returns, you're in control of your money. Nobody else here. You're in control of your Bitcoin. No one can run off with it like these other programs we've seen that took people's Bitcoin, promised high returns for you, but then at the end of the rainbow ran off. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you're in control of it. We're talking about being able to tap into a rising asset class, which historically was almost impossible for your average person because it was kept to the elite and you had to be in the know. But because this is so massive and cryptocurrency was developed outside the system, this is available to us, guys. So we're looking at 15.45% monthly. When we look at the past a little bit over a year with universal signal, let's cut that in half, be conservative, 8.5%. And you can play with the calculator on their website and even cut it down a little lower and see how astronomical it can be. Let's go off of 8.5%. It's almost half of that. Let's do a starting balance, a very conservative starting balance of $500. And when you're starting with a low amount, you want to give yourself time to let the compounding kick in. So we'll give it 72 months. Again, the whole idea here is to make it accessible for everybody, whether you're looking at retirement and you're saying, I don't have enough, man, to make it with my lifestyle, 20, 30 years, 40 years out. Or if you're young and you're looking at this huge college debt, or maybe you didn't go to college and you're looking at these prospects of career and you're like, how am I ever going to get ahead? Here's a way to get ahead. It's absolutely amazing. And with a conservative starting point. You don't have to risk huge amounts of money to do it. So at 8.5%, which is reasonable based on what we've seen the universal signal do, you would be looking at $177,000 in 72 months. You add another month to that, another like 12 months to that, it becomes astronomically larger. If you add $100 a month, which again is very conservative, if you added $100 a month to that, in 72 months, you would turn that into almost $600,000 by just simply plugging in to the universal signal and letting compounding work for you at the assumption it's getting an 8.5% compounding per month average. It doesn't have to do that every month, but average, which, because we're in a rising asset class in a developing market of a massive disruptive technology nature, that's why we're seeing this be available to us. And it will be for years because we're early. But of course, every year that passes, this, by the way, this doesn't even factor in the potential of Bitcoin going to 100,000, 200,000, some people more. This doesn't even factor that in, the astronomical growth that a lot of people expect. This is based off cutting almost in half what we saw here very early in the game. You always have options. That's what people have to realize. Like, they talk about self-made millionaires. You have to understand everybody is self-made. While there is this indoctrination, while there is this peer pressure and social pressure to live and think a certain way and have a certain paradigm and context, ultimately, we have to know that it's our choice, our individual choice, especially when you're exposed. We are exposed to plenty of opportunity and information. And this is an example. It's always your choice. You have options. Let's look at them. There's the managed financial account. That's your typical traditional approach. You got a long-term strategy. Your average fees are 3.1%. You keep only 50 to 60% of the gains. You're vulnerable to market crashes like we saw in 2008, and then many believe are coming soon again. Limited access to your funds. That's one option, and we see that traditional path not working out for very many people in today's economy. Then you've got the crypto coin schemes. And because people are so anxious, and because people are looking, going, man, I'm not prepared, or I'm missing out, we saw a lot of people jump into those. It's an accelerated strategy, but 94% of them shut down or disappear in the first year. So it's destructive in nature. No access to your funds because almost in every case, they end up running off with them. and you don't have access to them because they're holding them and they just show you numbers on a screen, so you think it's growing and you think it's there. You might be able to take some out temporarily, but because you keep putting it back in to make more, and they end up 94% of them shutting down within the first year, and all of them in time, you don't have access to the funds. Unifii is a conservative and still accelerated long-term protect and grow strategy. You keep 100% of your gains. You profit from market crashes. When you look at Venezuela and these other countries, I mean, you can go look it up online. When their financial collapses happen, when their currency collapses, Bitcoin shoots up in those areas, like their exchanges in their country, to astronomical numbers. So the inevitable crash that Tony Robbins is talking about, that Robert Kiyosaki is talking about, we can know. We can know from that. If you trust their advice, their financial advice, you can know that crypto is going to boom, just from what we see happening in Venezuela and some of these other countries where they've had these collapses. You profit from market crashes. You're in full control of your funds. And that's the big deal here. You're in full control of your funds. Okay, someone might ask, I've not even started preparing for my eventual retirement. Can the prosperity use strategies and the universal signal help me get caught up or even better retire sooner? The answer, the universal signal technology combined with proven financial principles and wealth building strategies like we talked about today can knock decades off any retirement target and without needing to trade large sums of money. This is a conservative, accelerated path to wealth. Getting started, product purchase and initial access. Guys, I mentioned earlier, it's extremely reasonable. They can easily charge $2,000 for this. It's really, really low. Like, you have to understand like what they're putting together and the work that they have to continue to do. This is proprietary. They're creating their signals. Ron Monterilli, the CEO of this, has been doing this for years in the traditional markets. 2 years ago, he started to focus on the cryptocurrency markets. Now he's making this available, and he priced all of this to be able to make a huge impact in the world. He priced it low enough that everybody could do it. So everyone could tap into what I'm talking about today. So it's just a one-time payment of $279.95, and then there is a monthly subscription to continue to get access of $79.95. But when you look at the numbers I shared with you, when we look at the results, this is nothing in comparison. And even just how it taught me how to look at money, how it taught me how to look at compounding. I understood the concept, like many of you probably did. I got out the calculator many times in my life and played with compounding. But the way that they're sharing a path to take advantage of it makes it vivid and real right now. And because they're giving us these signals that are clearly profitable, it makes it compelling to change our habits and to start actually applying it. I showed you the compounding calculator. It's absolutely amazing. The price to get started is very, very low. I should mention, I want to be really clear, the $279.95 is not yearly. It's a one-time payment, and then you just have a monthly recurring charge after that, the month after it starts, $79.95, to continue to get access to everything that I shared, including the signals. If you want to be like I am, sharing the information, building a distribution network, there is an additional fee, very reasonable, of $29.95 a year, for the customer support and the support of that, to facilitate that. Because as they grow and scale up, obviously they need to facilitate that in some respects. $29.95 a year to be an affiliate. For those of you that want to learn about the rewards program, learn about how you can accomplish extraordinary goals by helping empower others, get with the person who referred you here, and they will give you a presentation to the compensation structure. And you can certainly meet me also on this Saturday. If you have questions and answers, or your questions, I can answer those live for you. Get with the person who referred you here, then get you in touch with that. Guys, I want to welcome you to the Unifii family. Before we go, I want to mention why they called themselves Unifii. It's a very compelling reason why I first started listening to what was here before I really knew the full picture, why I opened up to it and learned everything that I shared with you today. Ron Monterilli, who started this company, and the other owners, didn't just want to make a bunch of money. They've made a lot of money. They wanted to empower people with this information. They had a vision that they could, if they kept the price point down low and they kept it simple, that they could share what they've been able to do and accomplish with tapping into compounding and rising asset classes and knowing when to get out before a market collapses, and pass that on in a simple way to people who aren't expert traders, and to leave it in your hands to be able to be in control, to empower you to take control of your growing and protecting your own money. I mean, what a novel idea, right? Something that most people are completely out of control about. Most people are on the short end of the stick, like Einstein was talking about, of compounding. And that's why we can't get ahead, because we're not tapping in. They wanted to just I think of that vision. It's incredible. And they put it together to be able to do it, and it's happening. Myself, my friends, my loved ones, our lives are changed forever from this. It's difficult to describe. They've pulled that off. But it's bigger. They call it Unifii because there's a mission here too. They want to empower people financially and pool funds together and work together as more and more people become successful as the years go on, tapping into all of this, and go around the world and really make a difference in the world. And I know that that's a sincere intention, because when I introduced Ron to one of the leaders who's developing a business and who is quite successful at it, Ron answered all of his questions, and they worked together, and it was a great conversation, a positive, constructive conversation. But when it came around to this gentleman talking about how he goes into the jungles of Thailand and is helping with his free time and some of his resources and building schools for the underprivileged in the jungles of Thailand, and he shared that with Ron, that's when Ron lit up and talked about Unifii's mission and talked in a completely different dynamic way about what we're doing here, and talked about how perhaps they can work together and have that be one of Unifii Care's projects. I can see the sincerity and the intention behind that mission to really want to make a difference in the world here, and that's what drew me to this company. It's the real deal in every way. It's not a gimmick, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people are drawn to gimmicks, and I understand that. But I really encourage you to take a serious, hard look at how you may have been dealing with growing your money, protecting your money, or not growing and protecting your money up until now, and make a change with Unifii. Get back with the person who referred you here. Come on in, plug in, and the rest will be history, as they say. I am certain that you will love it as much as I do, and it will change your life. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye, everybody.